This is a video to show how to make single increases in knitted fabric. The first increase that I'm going to show is the bar increase, or the knit front and back. I've got 11 stitches on this needle, and I want to make this increase so that 2 whole stitches show at each selvage. So there will be these 2 and then these 2 whole stitches. The problem with this increase is it's visible. It's not considered to be quote-unquote invisible, not that anything is invisible. This leaves a bar, which is why it's called the bar increase. And the bar will show to the left of the stitch in which the increase is made. So if I increase in the second stitch, the bar will be between the second and third. If I were to do the same thing at the end and increase in the next to the last stitch, the bar would be between this stitch and the last stitch. So in order to make them so they mirror with 2 stitches and 2 stitches, I've got to make it in the second stitch from the beginning and then the third stitch from the end, and that way the bar will be between the third end stitch and the next to last stitch. So to make this increase, I'll knit the first stitch, work the first stitch, then I'm going to knit into the front of the next stitch just like I normally would. I'll pull the new stitch through, but I won't take the old stitch off of the needle. I'll turn over, and if you can see, I'm going to go behind into the back of the stitch, and that's what it looks like from the front. And then I'll knit that. So now I've got 2 stitches, and you can see right here is where the bar will be created from that old stitch. So then I'll work to the end, and then when I get to this third stitch, I'll do the exact same thing. I'll knit into the front, and then I'll knit into the back. And so if you knit left-handed, it's the same thing. You're just holding your yarn in a different place. So you knit into the front and then into the back, take it off. Let's take a look at the make one increases. The make one increase is a little bit less visible, and again I'm going to make them so that there are 2 stitches at each end. But now I'll make those increases in exactly the same spot between the second and third here and the third and the next to last over here. I want to make a right leaning on the right side and a left leaning on the left side. To make a right leaning make one increase, we're going to use this bar that's between the 2 stitches, the stitch I just worked and the next one. For the right leaning, I'm going to come in from behind, and then I'm going to knit that stitch from the front. And then I'll work to the same position at the back here, the other end. I'm going to make the left leaning on the left side, and instead of going in from the back, I'm going to go in from the front and then knit that stitch through the back loop. And by knitting it in the opposite direction, I give a slight twist at the base of that area, and I don't get the little hole that you would normally get. And then the last single increase that we'll look at will be the lifted increase. And this one is pretty invisible if you don't make it too close together on consecutive rows. So you should have at least 2 or 3 rows separating. You wouldn't want to make these every row or every other row. On the right, again, I'm going to make a right lifted increase. So I want to have 2 stitches. Then I'm going to go, if you see this stitch, you can see the stitch below. And that's the stitch I'm going to make the increase into. So I'm going to take that stitch and lift it onto the needle. And then I'm going to knit it and then continue. And so that's pretty easy. It's the other side, the end side, that gets a little tricky. So let's quick get over to the end. And again, I'm going to make it on this 3rd stitch so that I have 2 from the outside. But in order to get on the other side, I've got to work this stitch. That makes the row that I want to work in appear as if it were 2 rows below, because I've actually worked the stitch. If I go into the row below, you can see I'm going to have problems because I've got to have 2 stitches in the same stitch below. But if I go 2 rows below and I lift that up onto the left needle, notice it's mounted backwards, so I'll have to knit it through the back loop. And then I keep going. And that's the left lifted increase.